Welcome to my channel. I'm Steve Down. This is my guitar. If you're just joining us, this is the 7th week looking at a study on my favourite things, Kenny Burrell's version taken from his album Soulero, which is from 1966. The tune My Favourite Things obviously made very famous in two areas, the musical Sound of Music, and also the quintessential jazz version by John Coltrane from 1961. So go check out both of those. It's always good to make sure that you're checking out all of the other versions so that you can get some inspiration. This version is taken from 1966 album Soulero by Kenny Burrell and is very bluesy. We've moved it out, or he's moved it out of 3/4 into 4/4, and it's much more of a funky blues vibe. Make sure you go back over all of the other episodes if you want to get fully immersed in the tune, but today we're rounding off the solo with the last 16 bars. Next time we'll take a look at the final head, and then I'll put together a complete transcription like I have done for all of the other 9 series I don't know what the plural for series is. I want to say a big thanks to my patrons. Patreon is the place to go to support me, and all of the 77 people that are over there, which is an amazing number given that I only started this last year. All of those people help keep the lights on. So I want to say a big thanks to the ones that have signed up this week. Oscar, Gert, Nick, Mark P, Aidan, and Chaz I. So thanks guys for signing up, guys and girls, for signing up and supporting me and helping me keep the light, slightly pink hue of a light in here today, but thanks for keeping that on. So if you want to head over to Patreon and you want to get the benefit of having the backing track that I use here that I created myself with Josh Moon, Joe Harris, and also Jamie Sefton. If you want to get that and also the full transcription, all of the exercises that I put on here and all of the stuff from the previous series, that's all over one place on Patreon. And also next week on Sunday, GMT 8 PM, I will be doing an hour-long Zoom call with all of my patrons, whoever's able to sign in. And I'm going to be doing a Q&A on the last few weeks of My Favourite Things. The last one was really fun. There's quite a few of you that signed in, and from the feedback, it was really helpful, and I was able to answer some questions and go in a bit deeper than I do here. So head over to Patreon, links on the screen, and sign up, and then come to the Zoom call 8 PM GMT time next Sunday. If you want to support in a one-off fashion, there's a Buy Me a Coffee link below. And as always, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and drop me a comment below if you've got anything that you want to add or question me on. Okay, let's get into it. Let's look at the first 4 bars of the final 16 bars of this solo. Okay, so this first 4 bars is just chocked full of displacement. We dove into this last week where we looked at where Kenny has a phrase that's got 4 notes and he put that to a triplet count. And what that does is displace the beat, because obviously a triplet count is 3. And if you've got a 4-note phrase, then that's going to keep going and going and going, and it won't resolve onto beat 1 for quite some time. So have a look at last week's lesson if you want to take a look at that. This week is still displacement, but it's slightly different. What we've got here is just standard swung 8s, and it's chock full for 3 bars. There's no break at all. And obviously when you've got a bar with just 8th notes in it, and it's full of 8th notes, then obviously that's an even number. So it's not like triplets where you've got 3. This is an even number. And what Kenny's doing is he's doing the reverse of what he did last week, where basically his phrase is 3 notes. So his phrase is odd, and the subdivisions that he's using are even. So again, it creates displacement. So here we've got a slightly bluesy phrase starting on the blue note, the B flat, and sliding into the B, into the 5th, and then hitting the flat 7 after that. And he's doing that starting on the and of 4 from the previous bar, and then resolving eventually 3 complete bars later onto beat 1 of bar 4, before going into, which we'll look at in a second. But that's it's a really cool little device to use. Like I said, it's the reverse of what we did last week, but it's a really good device to get into your own playing and try and use in your own solos. Here's a little idea somewhere else, something that's slightly simpler down in the mid-range of the guitar, an exercise for you to work on. First of all, I start off by basically giving you these 3 notes, and I'm putting it in a really boring way. A, B, D, putting it in a really boring rhythm, 1 and 2, 3 and 4. And then after that, you're getting the displacement, where we're basically chock-in the bar full of eighth notes and then continually playing that 3-note phrase. Okay, and then eventually 3 complete bars later, on beat 1 of bar 4, we resolve back onto the A, the first note of the bar. So here it is close up. And you can do this with any 3-note phrase. So just take any 3-note phrase, or even a 5-note phrase, you could do it with a 5-note phrase as well, and put it to a count of even 8s, okay? Or you could do it with semiquavers as well. Anything that basically is an even number. If you do that, you're going to create some displacement if your phrase is an odd number of notes. Okay, let's crack on into the next 4 bars and look at what Kenny's doing. Okay, so what Kenny's doing here is basically using some dyads or double stops. He's using the notes of B and G together, and he's sliding in the B from below, so from a B flat, from the blue note. Okay, now some of you who are familiar with the scale that we've been using here, the E minor pentatonic, will know that if we add in the blue note, we usually add it in there. So on the 15th fret, on the 3rd string, on the G string. Okay. Now what Kenny's doing here is he's actually adding it in on the 11th fret on the 2nd string, which is a really novel way of doing it. Some guitarists do this. It's mostly, you know, used by quite a lot of jazz guitarists who want to slide into the B on the 2nd string rather than on the 3rd string. Okay, so make sure that you learn your scale like this, the blues scale like this as well, where you've basically got the blue note not on the 3rd string but on the 2nd string, a semitone down from the 5th note. And just for good measure, here is a little lick, not using double stops, but using that blue note that is on the 2nd string rather than on the 3rd string, below the note of B. Just using that note there quite prevalently on here. So have a go at this little lick. So I actually use the blue note in both the 2nd string, on both the 2nd string and the 3rd string. So with the... Okay, so it's worth making sure that you're practicing both the blues scale with the blue note there, and also there as well. Sounds like we've got a bit of a buzz on that string. Need to get that one fixed. This guitar's taken a bit of a beating over the last few weeks with some touring that's starting to ramp back up. One thing just to very quickly note is at the end of this, there's quite a tricky little passage. Okay, there. Don't try and pick all of this. Use legato to your advantage. So here, I'm starting off with my 2nd finger on the 15th fret, and then going up to the 16th fret with my 3rd finger, pulling off. Okay, so pulling off from my 16th fret to the 15th fret, and then sliding back from the 14th to the 12th fret from A to G. Okay, and then at the end there, just picking that. Okay, it's quite tricky to get that crisp, and Kenny does get it crisp on the record. And then straight into the next one. I don't think I got it right there. There we go, that's better. And make sure that you've got that that quarter tone bend, because he starts to do that now in the next 4 bars, which these 4 bars. So we've got a lot of 4th C bendy stuff going on here. I know it's not a particularly technical term, but that's what's going on here. And here again, Kenny's showing his influence of what's going on in the 1960s. The blues boom from the British blues invasion, and also bands like Rolling Stones, the Beatles, Kinks, Hendrix, all of that stuff, you know, kind of starting to really hot up from the mid-60s. He's starting to get all of that stuff into his own playing. It's impossible not to be influenced by that if you were around at that time. And so some of these string bending techniques, the quarter tone bends, which, you know, were being used in the 1950s by rock and roll guitarists, but, you know, are being used far more now and far more aggressively. You can see and hear Kenny using it here. So it's worth making sure that you know your minor pentatonic scale in fourths, which is this. And then here's a little lick that's influenced by what Kenny's doing, just using some slides into the fourthsy ideas that Kenny's using. So sliding from underneath, kind of similar to what we were doing earlier where we were sliding from the blue note from underneath. We're now doing it with fourths, okay? And then using the blue note again on the third string. So this is why, again, it's really useful to make sure that you know your blue note on the second string and on the third string, not just in the usual position that's here where you always play the blue note there. Use it here as well, okay, because it is quite nice. So here's that exercise. Okay, final 4 bars of this solo. You'll notice that the rhythm section's actually changed. It's gone back into the do-do-da-da-do-da. So it's gone back there instead of it being in the swung thing. Not that that necessarily makes any difference. We're still in the E minor pentatonic area, but it's just something to be aware of so it doesn't shock you. Here, we're still using the fourthsy idea. There's something that he does towards the end. Okay, and he fluffs that last note, which I love. But the thing that we want to look at here is not that, and not the fact that he's using the pentatonic again, but more the fact that he's phrasing over the bar. If you notice, he starts his phrase on the and of 3 and then continues the melody over the top of the bar. And it's a really good thing to make sure that your phrases don't always start on beat 1, but sometimes that they start on the and of 2, and of 3, or, you know, on beat 2, on beat 3, on beat 4, just not always on beat 1. So, you know, one thing that you can do here is if you end up starting your melodies on beat 1, memorize some of the licks that you play that are yours, and then record them. And if you've got the ability to be able to drop it into something like Logic or Pro Tools or GarageBand, just shift them along a little bit. So either shift them forwards or shift them back, and then listen to how it sounds, and then try and internalize how that sounds. If you don't have anything like GarageBand or Pro Tools or anything like that, you can use a looper, or you can use your phone and record a voice memo of your little lick, and then start counting over the top of it. Okay, and count in a different place. So rather than counting 1, 2, 3, 4, you could start counting 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 over the top of it to accentuate the fact that now you're hearing that melody in a different place in the bar. All of these are really good tools for just making sure that you're not always starting on beat 1. So with that in mind, here's a little lick that you can practice that's inspired by what Kenny did in the last couple of bars of the solo, where we phrase over the bar. So it starts on the and of 3 and then continues the melody line. Okay, thanks for watching if you got this far. This is the last episode on the solo. Next time, we're going to take a look, which will be in 2 weeks' time, we're going to take a look at the final melody and see what he does differently from earlier in the tune. And then the week after, we'll wrap up with a full transcription of the entire piece. Make sure that you check Patreon for the backing track, the transcription, and any exercises. So make sure that you sign in for that Zoom call, and that will be on the 26th of September at 8 p.m. Make sure that I said earlier that it was GMT. Make sure that's actually BST, British Summer Time, because we're still on summertime over here. So make sure that you're signing in at the correct time if you're in a different time zone. And we'll talk a little bit more about the solo, go a bit deeper, and I'll answer some of your questions. So have fun practicing, and I'll see you next time.